All right, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here on this Friday night. It is the Earthmaster out here with you, and just doing a little update video on this beautiful Friday, January 26, 2024, 7:53 p.m., right? California time. So that date is very important here as we look at, well, the last earthquake on January 26, 1700. The big one out here along the Pacific Northwest coast. That was a 9.0 earthquake, the great 1700 Cascadia earthquake. So we're looking at the 324th anniversary, right? 2024. So that's kind of a big deal. A lot of time has passed since we've seen a big earthquake out here. They got it centered right around the center section here of the Cascadia subduction zone. This thing was a huge quake. We're going to study a little bit about it here in this update and take a look at the future potentials out here. So, starting off out of the bat here, right off the bat, there is an awesome education site here in the Oregon State Education Department with regards to the Cascadia subduction zone and the potential future hazards out here. Of course, a lot of the majority of the volcanoes out here in the Cascade Mountain Range has to do with the subduction zone out here, right? It does contribute, obviously, to volcanic activity. Now, this is a 700-mile-long subduction zone that extends up past the Vancouver Island Range and all the way down into Northern California. Looks like the slip rate up here, they have it marked as around 36 mm per year. So that's quite a bit. If you think, 36 millimeters a year, times that by 324 years. So we got a lot of stress built up out here, a lot. And the stress tends to build up here just offshore. This is the other map here showing the subduction zone where the locked area is. It's just offshore Northern California, Oregon, Washington. The transitional zone here where we get that little bit of movement down into the subduction zone itself, and then we get the tremor activity occurring further down. We'll get to that map here in a second. We'll show you guys right now. Why not? So this is another view here, a little cutoff version of this area. Here's the Asinosphere, Juan de Fuca Plate earthquakes. North American Plate's going to be right up here, right? So we're looking at the Juan de Fuca Plate subducting underneath the North American Plate here. And the coast range of Washington, Oregon, and whatnot is going to be up here. Puget Sound area, Cascade Mountains over here. It's a little tricky, but you can see this Juan de Fuca Plate being subducted underneath here. We do get some deep quakes on occasion here, and this is pretty much where the tremor activity occurs as well. Now, this is where the strain builds up, source area for subduction zone earthquakes, right up here offshore. That's why we're getting the raising of the land, so to speak, here against the coast areas inland, because it's pushing all this land up, and eventually that will drop once we see a full rupture here of the Cascadia subduction zone. Another cutoff here of what I'm talking about in terms of volcanoes. You got the Juan de Fuca Plate subducting here. Melting as it gets further down and creating the volcanoes there across the Cascade. So all that land's being recycled, so to speak, which is interesting. The plate boundary out here, it's an interesting one here because you have the Pacific Plate and the Juan de Fuca Plate here, kind of a divergent boundary out here, if you will. So we do see quite a bit of activity out here on occasion within this zone. And obviously that's increasing the strain out here against the subduction zone area itself, further pushing in up underneath the North American Plate. Now there was, it was 2001. They did have an earthquake deep into the Cascadia subduction zone. I remember that one. I can't remember exactly what size it was. I think it was around a 7 or so around Seattle, but well underneath the Seattle area. Slow slip events right here, the tremor activity I'm talking about, occurs down there as well, but above those deeper level quakes. about 35, 45 kilometers there into that subduction zone. And of course, as you head further upstream, you're getting all that movement, right? Look at that arrow pointing down. That adds strain right here across the locked area, and that's been doing that, adding strain for 324 years, and that's a big deal, folks. So that's where we could see the M9. Those other earthquakes here, crustal quakes at the surface levels occur as well. Looks like, when was this? 900. We did see some crustal earthquake activity towards the surface, but these deep quakes trigger down there as well. Now, here's another interesting view. Not a whole lot of activity up here against the locked area, right? Notice that we're not seeing a whole bunch of swarming or little microquakes or little earthquakes that occur prior to the big, great Cascadia earthquake. It just kind of happens without warning. Hopefully one day we'll be able to take a look and maybe even forecast or predict the next big one. And I think that has to do with the tremor activity that occurs downstream. But as you can see, there's really, maybe it looks like there's one earthquake right here. It looks like maybe it was a 5-pointer, but we don't see little areas of 5s and 6s before a big one happens. It just goes with a 9-pointer. You can see historical data up here showing some of the larger quakes that has to do with the Cascadia. And a lot happens down here in Northern California as well, in the 6, 7, and even 8 range. Here's a little overview of the activity that will take place following this earthquake, the tsunami. Along with the shaking, a short time later, there will be a great tsunami that comes inland due to the area sudden uplift and subsidence there of the land. It's going to create a giant wave, very similar to what we've seen there in Japan in 2011. And they've studied this. I've even seen this. Me and Missy Mimi's went up here and looked at the old sand deposits, old tsunami deposits out there, and we sent some of that sand to some of our members there that won in the 100,000 subscriber giveaway. I think it was then, or was it the 50,000? I can't remember. But either way, digging through the dirt and whatnot, you do discover tsunami deposits. And you can go back even further than the Native American pits and see previous tsunami deposits there. So earthquake activity happens quite often out here. I'm going to show you guys a couple different maps, different graphs here. This is the Cascadia earthquake timeline. We're a little bit past 2000. I wish I could go back to 2000. It'd be 24 years ago. That'd be pretty awesome. 24 years ago. Goodness. Okay, so we are here, right? These red lines, the darker red lines compared to the thinner short lines, these are full ruptures, meaning 9.0 or greater. The entire subduction zone breaks there across the Cascadia. And the last one was back in 1700. It looks as though the previous one there was about almost 300 years or so ago, previously to the 1700 one. But we do see these little breaks. See, that's the voyage of Columbus here, that secondary one, previous to the 1700. 8.0 earthquakes. And that mainly occurs in the area of Northern California, Southern Oregon area. That's where the fault breaks along the southern half of the subduction zone in 8.0 or greater magnitude. Now, in comparison, say if you have a 9.0 earthquake versus an 8.0 earthquake, doesn't seem like a lot, right? But a 9.0 is 31 times more the energy than the 8-pointer. So either way, these are large earthquakes, but then you get into the even larger. So either one of these would be a bad deal across the Pacific Northwest, Northern California. Average intervals here, there's a lot of spaces in here, right? You see that, and they're getting a little bit closer together. Anywhere from like 260 to 500 years is your regular reoccurrence intervals. You can't really accurately predict, but they did make a little decent layout here, of all these earthquakes. And as you can see, 8-pointers sit in here. It almost seems like after every large rupture. There was a little period back here where horses domesticated. Not going to give a history lesson here, but first wine was made 8,000 BC. Goodness. All right. So yeah, we do see these partial ruptures right here in the smaller line, and it almost looks like we could be due for one of those, either an 8-pointer or it could just be another 9-pointer. But when you look at all these little graphs here, and it would make sense to see maybe just a partial rupture in 8-pointer. I think we're getting close. It's got to be close. 324 years now built up strain. That's a lot. And let me check this out here. Go back and check something out, I should say. Spreading, let's see, so 36 mm a year. I just want to do something here on my calendar. 36 times, it's going to be 324 years. Ooh, man, is that right? Let me double check that. It's a little scary. 36 times 324 years. Oh man, that's 11,664 mm. Let me get that though. Mm to feet. Let's see if we can get that. So technically, if we do that number right there, we're looking at 38 feet and about 3 inches or so of accumulated strain. That's a lot if you really think about it. And this land out here across Oregon, the Pacific Northwest, Northern California is supposed to subside, drop out here, because it has been going up. GPS stations tell us that. So not only is the land going to drop here and relieve all that pressure, so to speak, but the wave is going to come in following that. So that is not good. It's always good to pay attention to local hazards and education sites such as the Oregon State site here that I'm on right now. They got a wealth of information on here. Pretty much anything you could want to know about it. They talk about the tremor activity, slip, transition, locked area. Here's the slip down here. It's a fairly complex event. We really haven't been studying the tremor activity all that much. It's fairly a new thing in terms of that tremor activity down into the subduction zone. Here they mentioned about every 14 months the Pacific Northwest experiences slow slip on a fault that is the equivalent of about a magnitude 6.5. Now, the tremor activity has been off lately. We've been noticing a lot less tremor, and the last tremor event was roughly, of any size, was roughly back in October of 2022. We'll look at that here in a second. Actually, let me bring it up here while I'm thinking about it. Cascadia tremor right here. 29 epicenters today, just around the Seattle area. But we really haven't seen that 14-month interval that would tell us, hey, that, the regular occurrence is happening. Right here in October 2022 is when we've seen the last event. And before that, it was pretty much spot on in terms of regular occurrences. This area, since then, we've only seen very minor tremor activity here since 2022 October. So I'm not for sure what's going on. I don't know if it's getting ready to pop, if we're going to see maybe a deeper quake downstream, but something's going on. So you have to, I think this is key to hopefully forecasting the next Cascadia. Say this happens tomorrow, then we can look back on data and see what maybe transpired prior to this big earthquake activity. I think it's very beneficial monitoring that tremor. So yeah, take your pick. Going to be either a 9.0 or an 8.1 or possibly greater. And this map here it would make sense, right? to see maybe another an 8-pointer, because they do occur quite often following the 9.0. It seems like there's at least one 8-pointer in between major ruptures, and there wasn't in between these two events here. So it would seem odd to have another 9-pointer, but you never know. But I think that south end is getting fairly tight. The tsunami potential out here is really crazy as well. Back in 1700, there's been historical records, right, in Japan. I think they've seen about a 10-foot high tsunami out here across the Japan area from the previous 1700 earthquake here along the west coast. Here in Oregon, Washington, Northern California, much, much, much bigger. And that is listed on the site here. This one's from Oregon.gov. Kind of shows you how the tsunami builds and whatnot. Another cross section there of the Cascadia. Okay, so these tsunamis are no joke. It's not just one single wave. It's a series of large waves that do not go down until it's over. They can travel up to about 500 miles per hour in the open ocean. They slow down as they enter the shallow coastal waters. Many hit the shore at a speed of about 30 to 35, faster than a person can run, obviously. A tsunami is not a single wave, but a series of wave surges that look like storm surges. And they can last for minutes, hours, or even days. Along the Pacific Northwest coast, tsunami waves from a Cascadia subduction zone earthquake would average between 40 and 60 feet high, with the potential of a 100-foot wave in some areas along flatland and rivers. Waves would travel definitely far inland. Definitely. So a 100-foot wave, folks, that's huge. We're talking, roughly what the Japan area seen in 2011 from their 9-pointer. So not only do you have the extreme shaking, but you have very minimal time to get out of there before that wave decides to come in. Definitely hit Hawaii. I can't remember exactly what they stated the waves were out there. It looks like it runs around 3 to 10 feet or so across the Hawaii area. Definitely, something I don't think most people are ready for. When I was up in Oregon here a couple years back, I stayed at, it was up in Coos Bay. I think it was Coos Bay or Brookings. Maybe even Gold Beach. I think it was Gold Beach. We stayed at the motel there. Very nice people. Talked to a few people around town. And I asked people about if they know the earthquake hazards out there in Oregon. And they started talking about the San Andreas Fault. And that's just down in Southern California. A lot of people, unfortunately, are not informed in terms of the Cascadia subduction zone that sits right offshore here. Some people do, some people didn't. I was just shocked that even, that there was a handful of people that were not aware of this. It's the only way you're going to survive this is if you have the information and knowledge of what can happen. A lot of people think, oh, it's fear-mongering. Why do you guys spell doom and gloom? It's not fear-mongering in any possible way. This is all about knowledge and information information is what is going to save you in the event when that earthquake does take place. It's not going to maybe happen, or it might happen, or if it happens, it happens. A lot of people are like that. It will happen, and I would want to survive it. I would want my family and me to survive it. So the best thing to do would obviously follow the tsunami evacuation routes. A lot of towns up there in Oregon did not have the proper tsunami evacuation signs, so a lot of chaos and a lot of confusion will happen, unless they get that underway. This was a couple years back when I went up there, and I was just looking around town. It's like, man, what are these guys going to do if there's a tsunami? Gold Beach is right there that on the beach that would no doubt see a tsunami. But so yeah, information definitely key into surviving the the earthquake, and also the tsunami. Let's see here. Here's a time frame, right? We talk about survival time. Let's read all of this. Although scientists cannot predict when the next earthquake will occur, the region is within the window of time to experience a significant event. Right? It's not like it happened 100 years ago and we got a couple generations to go through before it happens. It's not like that. We are in that window right now where it can happen anytime. This type of tsunami does not occur frequently. The last happened back on today's date, but 1700. But it poses the greatest threat with waves much larger than those from a distant source tsunami. And these tsunami waves will arrive within 10 to 15 minutes. That's your very minimal time. I wouldn't wait on it. If you start feeling some strong shaking up there, grab your stuff, your family, your pets, your belongings, your earthquake bag, and get out of there. Get to higher ground immediately, because you may have to deal with traffic jams and whatnot with everyone else trying to get out of the way. Every time I stay up there along the beach, it doesn't matter if it's, right on the beach or inland, and whether it's a nice motel or not, I cannot sleep when I stay over there because I'm just so worried about the potential of, am I going to wake up soon enough prior to the tsunami reaching us? I'm sure I would wake up, obviously, from the large shaking, but it's just a little scary. But it's best to be prepared, and best to make sure you have an earthquake plan. Under the coastline of the Pacific Northwest lies the Cascadia subduction zone, the largest earthquake fault in the United States outside of Alaska. It runs about 600 miles long. I found it to be about 700, but okay. From Northern California to British Columbia, and is capable of producing the magnitude 8.0 or greater earthquakes that can cause tsunamis. Geologists have found evidence of at least 40 Cascadia earthquakes in the past 10,000 years. So, got to be prepared. And really, we haven't seen much earthquake activity out here at all. Where this locked area is. Occasionally, and you can see it up here, all these fault systems crunching together. Occasionally, we'll see a couple smaller earthquakes out here, but and that's when I get a little bit worried. But that one, 9.0, is what we have to be ready for. I want to look at something here real quick. I'm going to modify the search, and I just want to go 1.0 and see what we've got here in the last 20 years. I'm just going to draw a little area up here across the Cascadia, and specifically just right around, I don't want to go too far in Northern California because they always get a lot of earthquake activity. And there's the splitting center out here, the divergent zone. You can see where that separation occurs, creating these new waves, new oceanic crust. And at the same time, that's kind of pushing down underneath the Cascadia. Let me bring this up here. Just search this little area, not too close there to the Blanco fracture zone, but I just want to see what we have here in the last 24 years. Hopefully it doesn't shut down my computer. I don't think it will. 186 earthquakes just in that little zone. And some of that, believe it or not, is definitely within that locked area. But their wording is that there's not any type of foreshocks, far as a 6-pointer, say today a 6-pointer hits up here in the Cascadia, and then all of a sudden the next day we get the 9-pointer. Stuff like that. Similar to what we've seen, in Japan, there was quite a few 6s and 7s. And we thought that was it. And then all of a sudden that 9-pointer came in. That shouldn't be the case over here, according to the geologists, seismologists, and all the professionals. So, but yeah, it's interesting to see some of the smaller earthquake activity clustered in the locked area here around the Cascadia. Some of these, let's see when this was. A lot of these were from last year. We had a decent swarm out there, it looks like. A couple 2s and even a couple 3s out there. 2000. And I wonder if that has something to do with all the lack of Cascadia right now. I think it's fairly well jammed is the word. Hopefully I can use that out here. It's just really odd not seeing a whole lot of tremor here recently. But yeah, a lot of these were from last year. We did have some in 2019, 18, 16. So they occur out here, some of these smaller ones. But yeah, last year we definitely had a bunch out there. Prior to that as well. A lot of times they don't add these quakes until days later. So these go unnoticed unless you go back on their history and check. Similar to what you see in Yellowstone. We could see, Yellowstone having a couple earthquakes on the seismos, and then nothing shows up on the USGS map until a couple days later when someone decides to add them onto the earthquake catalog. So I'm just going to definitely keep an eye on that more often. Because it seems like, they'll put them on a few days later after they happen. And I get it. They get busy. So, yeah, this is definitely worth reading. Here's a very simple overlay here of the subduction zone. Oceanic crust, obviously, the Juan de Fuca Plate with the lithosphere going underneath the North American plate here. Of course, you get that melting and sweltering, so to speak, down there. And that creates the Cascade Mountains, the volcanic arcs up there. Volcanic arc. And the Coast Range over here rising. Subduction zone trench right off here. Very simple layout. And volcanoes, too, right? Obviously, our last... what we got here for the... Mount Baker, it looks like about 200 years ago. Is that right? Mount St. Helens, very active up here. But we'll cover volcanoes in another update. I'm definitely gonna leave a lot of this up on the for you guys to check out in this update video, so you guys can read if you want from the Oregon State Education site. And I did have another one here. What did I do with it? I think I left it out here in the dust somewhere, but I'll find it and bring it back up. Far as earthquake activity right now, let's go ahead and just cover that real quick. See if anything has changed since the morning's update. One little earthquake up here outside of Mauna Kea. Looks like 2.2 at 12 kilometers deep. Not a whole lot of change here across the area of the Kilauea volcano. We are still seeing what looks like the tilt here across the summit region of the Kilauea volcano, still showing some inflation here over the last day or so. Not quite at the previous level of inflation that we've seen here over the last month or so, but give it time. I think it's going to go up there. This graph right here looks very similar to this segment. See right here, and then followed up by another small inflation event, and then technically we should see this rise up here late tonight, tomorrow, above the previous level. And it's followed this same predictable trend since September of last year. And again, this is the Kilauea volcano there on the Big Island. Last eruption back in September last year, but it's inflating. And this level here, what we're seeing is its highest level of inflation since the 2018 eruption. So something big is brewing definitely underneath the volcano there. Just a matter of time before we see activity start to really stir up. As far as any major earthquake activity here goes, that 6.1 in Morocco, that again, I don't know why the earthquake 3D globe is showing it. I talked about it this morning. There was no 6.1. It was actually a 3-pointer. I went and checked on the official site here, the EMSC model, and you can see it here as well. Let's see, where are we? That's it right there. Is a 3-pointer, 1829 at 4300. And if you look here, 1829, right? Same date. So I don't know why, but there's just a false earthquake on the globe, and hopefully it doesn't last. Doesn't do it all the time. It seems like it only does it when it's around the Morocco, the Spain area. It just I can refresh this, I can close it down, and it still stays up. So we'll have to just deal with that for now. But there was no 6-pointer. Aside from that, for the most part, the EMSC does a good job of covering the earthquake activity out here. A couple new ones, it looks like, around the Mariana Trench here, very shallow, 5.1. Papua New Guinea seeing a 5.5 as well. Looks like this center area here of the Pacific Plate, which, well, not the center area, but it's, you can almost draw a line here. The western area here of the Pacific Plate under a lot of strain. I'll keep an eye on this region here. Definitely showing some elevated activity. New Zealand seeing a handful of quakes there in the South Island area. Looks like that's right on the plate boundary. Aside from that, quiet out here across Fiji for now. West Coast activity. Let's go ahead and run over there real quick to the California area, where we did see some movement out here earlier. It was a 4-pointer. And let's see if we can go find it. Oh, 4.2. There we go. You guys want to take a guess what's out there? Well, I already posted it up on the a post on my YouTube channel. But let's check it out again. Very close to this place right here. No, it's not a Walmart. It's not a PG&E power plant. This is hydrothermal operations out here. There's quite a few of them, and they're scattered out all around this area where the earthquake activity is taking place. Some of these in operation right here. And they take advantage here of the heated areas below to create energy. And there's actually a process involved of injecting raw sewage underneath this ground. I know it sounds a little disgusting here, but that's their process to create energy. Goodness. You know, mankind creates some interesting things there, right? Gotta be green, so to speak. But so yeah, that's where this earthquake activity is occurring. Very common to see earthquake activity, and even this much on any given day. The past 30 days here, over 1,000 earthquakes. Sometimes it gets well above that number in a 30-day time period. So I don't think it's anything to worry about. Hopefully these guys know what they're doing. Hopefully they're not creating a whole bunch of major weak spots in here to where this whole thing would blow. I don't think that would be likely. But still, all this earthquake activity kicking up out there. And there's a lot of information on it. I don't know if it's still Calpine that owns this energy activity out here or not, or if it's split into a couple different energy companies. But last time I was out there a couple years ago, it was the Calpine hydrothermal operations. So that's going on right now. They're in Northern California. Very typical. Very, very typical. Aside from that, Cascadia looks good. Not a whole lot of activity going on right now. Again, that could obviously change. Southern California, handful of quakes out here. But nothing to worry about for now. All smaller microquakes. And the rest of the country out there looks fairly quiet as well. See if there's anything major going on here. The Atlantic Ocean pretty quiet. One older 4.9. The Iceland area up here, not seeing too much activity yet. It's still swelling, still inflating down here, but nothing really going on for Grindavik out here in terms of earthquake activity. But the inflation continues across the area, and let's check out the 8-hour run real quick of Grindavik. Oh, right here. And as you can see, the inflation's going to be here on the bottom, up vertical displacement, and you know we're still going up. So technically, I think it's realistic that we could see some more eruptive fissure activity in the weeks to come. I know there's a little time period, and I think it's about 30 days or so from our last December eruptive activity that was north of Hagafell. You guys remember that? Let me bring up this map here real quick. So here is the Grindavik area. You can see our most recent lava flow right here. It looks like it's kind of, well, no, it's right here. It's covered right here as well. This one entered into town and got a couple houses here. There's the one here in in January, but we also had one not that far up, further north, roughly around the crater area right here, north of Hagefell. It was roughly within this area here. They don't have it marked. I'm not for sure which one it is to select that. There it is. Okay. I took a wild guess. I just seen the date on here. I can't read Icelandic here, but that looks like the activity back in December. And there was about a 30-day time period between this one and that one. And there was still, obviously, inflation going on and leading to this most recent eruption. And it's been following a southward trend. And I still think it's possible we could see further activity open up here south into the Grindavik area or even into the ocean out here offshore. It's going up. It's not going down. I'd like to be positive here, but I also like to be realistic in terms of the potential out here of seeing future eruptive fissure activity. So we'll continue to watch that. Right now, a little quiet though with the earthquake activity, but we'll definitely keep our eyes on that. What else we got? Weather real quick. We do have some more storm systems here hitting the west coast. I see a lot of social media talking about some huge storms hitting us. Well, they're not super huge. And they call each event out here an atmospheric river. Years ago, they just used to be called low pressure systems. So now they're coming up with some names, atmospheric river. Pineapple Express was one used, for many years. But these are just our normal winter storms. I'm not seeing anything spectacular yet in these model runs. And this one doesn't quite go all the way up. We would have to check out the previous run here to get more of a model. And even this one shows backing off here of that Southern California storm. Let me see here. So we got one coming in roughly around Wednesday towards the end of this month, and that's going to spin around a little bit, bring some rain to California and wrap around some colder air for Oregon and Washington. But after that, it looks like there was at least one more storm system about ready to hit Southern Cal, and I think it was this area, but they have it showing way offshore now, so that doesn't look like it's going to materialize. But we'll watch it. Either way, we're going to enter into a wet pattern out here, and I'm not going to complain about it one bit. When it comes to weather, you'll hear me complaining more when it's sunny and 110 degrees than I will when it's cold and rainy and windy. I'm just not a summer guy. It's nice to go outside, lay in the sun, jump in the pool, but when it comes to weather, this is my weather. Cold, wet, windy. I just wish we had a little bit of lightning with this. We don't get lightning out here with these rainstorms here in California. All right, folks. We did almost a 40-minute long video here, but I just wanted to cover the Cascadia activity, and I think it's just really important to brush up on it, especially if you live up in the Pacific Northwest. Even if you live out in Hawaii, the effects will be known as that tsunami heads out that way, once it does happen. 324 years. 324 years. A lot of strain built up. So we'll just continue to check on it and hope for the best. Make sure you have an earthquake plan, folks, and be prepared. And let me know maybe what your thoughts are, or maybe if you have some information for the viewers out here, if you live in Oregon, or if you're a emergency response person up in Oregon, maybe areas that people can go for some further information, or maybe what to pack in their earthquake bag. I would definitely pack the necessities, priority papers, and stuff like that, birth certificates, documents, all that good stuff, ready to go in a blink of an eye. Just keep it in a tote, maybe keep it locked away, but you got to be able to get out of there in time before a tsunami comes in following the shaking And that's the other thing, a 9-pointer out there, going to do some damage to the infrastructure out there. The road network, could be power lines down. It's not a good scenario. This could be, I think, more than likely locally here, a worst case scenario than, say, Yellowstone. Now, I get it, Yellowstone going would be potentially catastrophic for locals out there, indeed, but also globally as well. But, the population density out here is a lot higher in the Pacific Northwest than it is around Wyoming, Yellowstone area. So just be prepared, folks. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later. Earthquake activity there around Hot Caves, Hawaii. Still seeing some odd readings here on the graph. It looks like intermittent data outage. Not for sure if it's consistent or not, but it seems like every time I jump on here, it looks like this. And that's it's not how it's supposed to look. It's not supposed to be choppy. It's supposed to be clear and steady like this. But we'll deal with it. If it does this tomorrow, then I'll go ahead and reset it. Anyway, folks, have yourself a good Friday night. Take care. Might watch a movie here with Missy Mimi's. Have a good night, everyone. Catch you guys back here later.